You're a tenant thinking, I'll just find someone on Facebook Marketplace. What's the worst thing that could go wrong? A lot. I mean, they might end up not paying their portion of the rent, or even worse, they keep their toilet seat up when all you want is for it to stay down each time after use. Are you okay with that? Because I'm not. Well, in this video, I'll walk you through the details so you know the basics before you decide to live with someone and share rent responsibilities. You might be married, in a partnership, or you might have just met yesterday. I don't judge. I just want you to know the knowledge that you need to know. I got your back. My name is Weiting, Bollu. I am the CEO of Openroom.ca, where the tenancy disagreements end up at court, and my team collects these court orders across Canada to make them publicly searchable for you to make a decision on who you rent to and who you rent from. And you bet I've read enough orders around roommate disasters. So let's take a step back. In Ontario, the Residential Tenancies Act, the RTA, governs the relationship between landlords and their tenants. And not every person living in a rental unit is considered a tenant. So when someone takes on a roommate, the legal rights and responsibilities are actually very different. And misunderstanding these differences can lead to conflict, unpaid rent, or even eviction. Who is a tenant? A tenant is someone who has a direct agreement with the landlord to a unit. So think about it this way. A tenant signs a lease or rental agreement with the landlord, pays direct to the landlord, has rights under the RTA, including notice requirements, privacy protections, and the rights to use the Landlord and Tenant Board, LTB, to resolve disputes. The RTA applies to tenants and landlords only. There are scenarios where you are the primary and you look at a roommate to share the lease agreement with. So the quick differentiation here is if your name is the only one on the lease, you are the one responsible for the lease terms. It's almost like you're the quasi-landlord to your roommate. If both of your names are on the lease, you are both responsible for that lease agreement term, and you're both considered tenants. So who is a roommate and who is not covered by the RTA? A roommate is someone who shares the rental unit with the tenant but does not have a direct agreement with the landlord. A roommate here will pay their rent to the tenant, has no legal relationship with the landlord, and is not protected by the RTA, unfortunately. This makes the legal relationship a very private contract between the tenant and the roommate, not between the roommate and the landlord. Because the RTA does not apply, disputes can't be taken to the LTB. Instead, the conflict is handled through the civil court system or by removing the roommate according to the agreement that is set in place. It is important for the tenant not to talk about tenant rights to the roommate. Specifically, the roommate must pay rent to the tenant and not to the landlord. And the roommate must request maintenance or parking, etc., to the tenant and not to be permitted to go direct to the landlord for services. How can a tenant actually protect themselves? If you as a tenant want to take on a roommate, control the situation before they move in. For example, create a written roommate agreement. This is not a lease. It is a contract between the tenant and the roommate. It should include things and clauses such as the monthly roommate fee or rent contribution payable to the tenant, payment due dates, shared responsibilities for utilities payable to the tenant, house rules, cleaning, noise, guests, and a clause stating how much notice the tenant can give the roommate to vacate if, for example, they fail to pay their share of the rent, or they cause problems or disrupt the household. I've made one for you in case you need a template to start with. Totally cool for me if you tell me, you know what, you've got this and you're gonna do it on your own and you totally don't need mine. But if you want to use ours, it's in the description below. Collect a rent deposit. The tenant can legally require a deposit from a roommate. This has nothing to do with the RTA rules about deposits that apply only between landlord and tenant. Yep, a roommate situation is a very, very unique one. And then, of course, set expectations early. Discuss things like cleaning, quiet hours, use of common areas, and how conflicts can be handled. I've also got a checklist you can refer to on things you should talk about with your roommate so everyone's clear with all the expectations on day one. But what if a roommate stops paying rent or becomes difficult? I thought you'd never ask. Oh, when you're the one on the hook in the lease agreement to pay the landlord and your roommate doesn't pay their fair share, it can damage your credit and put you in financial trouble. I don't want that for you. Because the roommate is not a tenant under the RTA, you as the tenant can give notice to the roommate to leave per your roommate agreement. Change locks after they vacate, or just change the locks immediately if they refuse to vacate in accordance to the notice that you've given to them. You can do this because the RTA's rules about lock changes actually do not apply in this case. And 3, you can sue in small claims court for unpaid amounts. If no written agreement exists, it becomes much harder to remove the roommate. The best defense for a tenant, you, is to have a solid roommate agreement in place before handing the keys to the roommate. All right, it's time for our rental trio. The top 3 takeaways for this session. Number 1, think carefully about inviting another person to live with you. Ensure you actually know what you want and expectations before you advertise for a roommate. Number 2, always use a written roommate agreement if letting someone move into your home. It doesn't need to be the Ontario standard lease. I've got one for you in the description below. 3, have a clause in the roommate agreement on evicting the roommate if they behave badly or they don't pay rent. Remember, a roommate is not a tenant under Ontario's Residential Tenancies Act, RTA. A tenant has legal rights. A roommate only has whatever rights are written into that roommate agreement. I mean, it's kind of scary to be a roommate if you ask me. You're not actually really protected in cases wherein things go wrong. But hey, protect yourself before someone moves in, not after the problem starts. If you've learned something from me today or found our resources helpful, drop me a comment or thumbs up. I want to hear from you. Subscribe to weekly knowledge sessions, and I will see you next week for more things I wish I knew about the rental industry. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.